today's video, we're going to create this detailed coffee bean in Blender. But as usual, before we get started, let's take this quick little break and come right back and we'll get into it. See you there. All right, welcome back, guys. Before we start modeling, this essentially is the model that we're going to make today. So let's go ahead and dive in. First thing I want to do is clear out my scene. And what I want to do from here is I'm going to go to top ortho view and I'm going to bring in a primitive circle. I want it to be 8 segments. And then I want to rotate it so that flat part is at the top on the y-axis. Then I'm going to come in here into perspective mode and it's all selected. I'm going to extrude it downward and scale it in just a little bit because I'm making the bottom portion of the other side of the coffee bean. I want to do it again, extrude and sizing. And I want to do it yet again. Extrude it down and size it or scale it in. And let's go ahead and from here, do it one more time, extrude it down and scale it in. Now I've gone a little bit too far there, so I'm going to open it up a little bit and then I want to bring it up on the z-axis and I'm going to open that up a little bit and then from here I can grid fill it. So far we have maintained good quad based topologies. Now what I want to do is go into edge select mode. I want to select that whole rim around the top and I'm going to extrude and scale immediately just to keep this part here flat, and then I want to fill this with an ingon and you'll see why here in a second. So right now we've got a big giant ingon in the center of our shape. So what I want to do is go into top orthographic mode. I'm going to take the knife tool and I want to put one line going straight down the center here, just like that. That's going to put some geometry in there, and then I'm going to grab that edge, not all the way across, but from where I selected it here, and then I want to bevel it. I want to segment 2 bevel, just like that, and then I'm going to get it roughly the width that I want. Now, once I'm done, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to select that innermost line there, that innermost segment, and I'm going to take the move tool, G, and then I'm going to move it down on the z-axis. That's going to give us that little crater in the center of our coffee bean. Now, I know it doesn't look like a coffee bean right now, but just give it a second. I'm going to tie in this geometry so we don't have a big giant ingon in here anymore. And right now I'm just kind of looking it over a little bit. Let's go back to object mode. I'm going to select everything. And I want to scale it in on the x-axis to give it that elongated shape like a coffee bean would have. Now, on the bottom, I want to grab that single vertices, and in proportional editing mode, I'm going to move it up on the g-axis just to push in that backside so it's not so perfectly round. And you see it bowed up the top just a little bit. I think that gives it just a little bit of deformation that looks a little bit more accurate. Now I'm running a level 3 or a level 4 sub D, and I'm shade smoothing it. So now what I want to do is go into my modifiers. I want to do a displace modifier. And I want to create new, go in and change it to clouds. You can copy my settings in here. It may be slightly different for you, especially if the scale of your coffee bean is not the same as mine. Because what I decided to do is model it first and then I can scale it down to the accurate size after the fact. That looks pretty good. It looks a little bumpy on the bottom. So what I may do is go back in here and tweak on this just a little bit. The bottom looks a little bit too deformed. Looks like a super duper dry coffee bean. And I play with this just a few more times just to get it where artistically I'm happy with what it looks like. Still looks more like a raisin on the bottom. So I'm going to dial that back just a hair. This is one of those cases, guys, where less is more. So I'm just changing the size of the deformation so it's not as small. I want it to be larger, so it'll be larger areas of the bean that are affected versus smaller little pockets. And I'm okay with that. So now I'm going to bring in a new window. I'm going to bring in and open my shader editor, and we're done essentially modeling the bean. What I want to do now is come in here and create materials for it. So now I've created a new material. I'm giving it a name. And let's see here. Let me bring in all the nodes that I'm going to need to make this. So I open up my coat setting because I know we're going to put a little sheen on the top. So I'm coming in here, I'm bringing in a bump node, and I want to bring in a noise texture. I'm going to need that. That's going to give it the bump material that we're going to give it. Also, I'm going to come in here and do a Voronoi. That's going to give the streaks, that roasted look to the bean. I'm going to bring in a color ramp. I'm going to bring in another one. I'm going to bring in an ambient occlusion, which is going to allow us to fill in the little shadowy areas. And let's see here. And now I want to bring in a mixed color node because we're going to have to tie portions of this together. So I'll bring that up. And I'm just kind of like lining everything up here. So now what I want to do is I want to start tying some of these nodes in together here in a second. So if you follow my steps here, you'll get the exact same material that I have created. And just so you guys are aware, if you happen to use Blender Kit, you don't have to do the paid one, you can do the free one. I have posted this material online under LM3 Official. I think it's called Coffee Bean Texture. It's free. So if you guys use Blender Kit in any of your projects and you want to use it, just look for the LM3 Official materials. There should be like 3 of them so far in Blender Kit. And this particular material that you're learning how to create will already be in there. So I'm taking the mixed color, tying it into principled, and now I'm kind of going in and changing some values here. I would just kind of talk over all of this, but if you guys just want to pause the video or slow it down and look at what I've done, I tried to slow down this process a little bit more than usual so you guys can really follow along. And I'm bringing that normal over to the normal, but you'll notice that I've got it in the wrong one. And I notice it when I go to render mode, and keep in mind I'm in Eevee. I'll notice it here in a second. I got that bump and that the normal plug is in the wrong normal for the principle. I'll discover that here in a second because I'm not getting the bump texture I should have. And just going here changing values, and as you guys can see, I'm not noticing anything. And just for full disclosure on this video, I made this texture ahead of time, so I know what my settings are. I'm not doing this one so much on the fly. So here's where I discovered it. So let's get it in actual normal. Bam, there you go. See, now we see the difference. It gives it that roasted, kind of shrunk down, leathery-esque look. But this is actually bump material. And that's looking pretty good. And now what I need to do here is once I have all my values in here, I need to start looking at, let me crank this ambient occlusion up to 128 so we can have a little bit better result there. What I need to start doing here eventually is start making some changes to my color stops on the color ramps. So I'm just kind of getting everything in place before I do that. So now let's go ahead and tackle the color ramps. And as I stated just a few moments ago, I already made this material, so I already pretty much know how to set this up. So I'm just kind of going back in principle, changing some values, make sure I've got everything in here, so I don't show you guys anything incorrect. So now we're going to come in here and start banging in the hex codes for the color values. And if you need to, pause the video and look at each one of these hex codes, because these will be identical to your machine if you follow along and try to recreate this. And now go down to the second one. And let's bang these hex colors in here as well. Now the second color ramp, or first, depending on how you look at it, it'll have 4 color stops, whereas the other one for the ambient occlusion only has 2, because I'm really just kind of shifting the color. So instead of using black and white, I just chose to actually put the color in there, because it's going to convert it. It's going to be a little bit more subtle. But it came out really well. But this one here is actually applying the color to our texture. And as you can see, as we start making these changes, you can see it reflected over in the left screen under the rendered view in Eevee. And keep in mind, the only light that we have in the scene thus far is that default point light, which we're going to get rid of it, and we'll change the lighting here in a minute. So I'm looking at all of my nodes here, moving it over so I can get a little bit better view. And another thing I want to do after I clean up the look of this a little bit, kind of move some things out, spread some things out, is I want to group these sections here, and I want to name them so that you guys, this is more for your benefit than mine, you guys will know what these sections are. This is a pretty simple node setup. So that top one is the ambient occlusion settings. The second one is the texture for the overall streaks and look of the coffee bean as it's roasted. And that third one is actually the bump texture. We could have used displacement, but I mean, really, there's really no need to. Bump is fine for this use case. And then all of that feeds from a mixed color, all of that feeds into a principal node, and then that then gets converted into the total output, which is what you see on the screen. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much the materials. We're done modeling and we're done with materials. So now let's go in here and let's start creating the scene. So first thing I do is I go back with that second window that's open, and I go to my 3D viewport, and I want to bring in my camera. And right now I have no idea how I want to set this up, so you're just going to kind of see me do it in real time. So one thing I do want to do is I want to make that camera square, so 1920 by 1920 pixels. I changed the focal length, I believe, to 80 millimeters because I like to do a lot of my 3D visuals at 80. It's less lens distortion, more of like a portrait framing. And I'm not going to leave it flat like this, but I'm just kind of looking it over just to share with you what's going through my head. Now, I changed my viewport to move on the 3D cursor. The 3D cursor is right in the center of that model. So I am rotating my camera around the 3D cursor without me having to actually move the model itself. I'm only moving the camera, even though it looks like I'm moving the model. If you notice, the axes stay aligned with the model itself. And I like to work that way because it makes it very easy for me to know my orientation in space at all times. It becomes very important when you start doing a lot of animation. All right, so I just pull that light out. If you look on the left-hand side, that's the render view. Turn Passepartout all the way up so I don't have anything distracting me outside of that viewport of that camera. Make sure I'm in render view. I'm gonna crank up the settings there for the I'm cranking down the world settings to 0, so no light. So now I'm bringing in some lights, some area lights. And as you guys know, if you watch my videos, I like to use Light Wrangler. Like I said, it just saves me time. You can do all this with vanilla lights. So I'm putting a nice light on the back side of that model to just enhance the edges so you can see the bump mapping and all of that, the detail from the backhand side since we got it on a black background. Now I'm gonna bring in another light to kind of act a little bit as a rim light. I'm basically doing 3-point lighting. It's very common used in photography. A lot of 3D artists use it. So if you guys want a tutorial on lighting or something, just leave something in the comments and I'd be more than happy to do one. However, I don't necessarily think it's necessary because so many other people have done very good lighting tutorials on Blender. So if you do, I know Kaizen Tutorials had a really good one that I saw like about a year or two ago that was really good, and many other people have as well. So if you look around, you'll find some good lighting tutorials here. All right, so essentially that's all I'm doing is I've composited the shot. I've got the shot like I wanted. I've got it set up. Took all of the world lighting out of the scene, and I'm just kind of getting the camera and the zoom and all of that like I want, setting up the lights like I want to give that bean a little bit of character, because at the end of the day, we're just looking at one coffee bean. I will say this, in the next few videos, we're going to take the same model of this coffee bean and we're going to do some other things to it. Now that we got it set up, let's go ahead and look at our render in Eevee. Keep in mind, this is Eevee, not Cycles. You could have done it in Cycles too, but I want to show you guys some more pretty cool stuff in Eevee. So this is the finished product. Great job, guys. If you like our content, please feel free to give me a like and a subscribe for more videos. There's going to be some continuation parts to this one coming up. We're going to take this bean, we're going to multiply it, and we're going to do some cool stuff with it. So make sure you guys stay tuned, follow up, because you're going to learn a lot here. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Talk to you soon. Peace.